Adrian Vale here. I'm sitting in a small apartment in Prague right now, looking out at the rain-soaked streets, and I've been thinking about soap. Not just any soap, but the soap Tyler Durden makes in Fight Club. From human fat stolen from liposuction clinics. And specifically, that moment when he holds up a bar and says those 3 words, "Just add water." It's a throwaway line in some ways. Blink and you miss its significance. But I would argue, and I've spent the better part of 3 decades studying existentialist philosophy, that this scene, this entire monologue, represents one of the purest distillations of existentialist thought ever put on film. Today we're going to dissect why. We're going to talk about freedom, about absurdity, about what it means to truly rebel against meaninglessness. And we're going to ask a dangerous question. Is the liberation Tyler Durden offers genuinely liberating? Or is it just another cage dressed up as freedom? Let me start with the scene itself. Tyler is making soap. He's explaining the process to the narrator, our unnamed protagonist, our everyman. And he says something remarkable. He talks about how he used to work as a waiter at the Pressman Hotel, one of those places where the wealthy gather, where they're served by people they don't see. I was a recall campaign coordinator, Tyler says in another scene, but here, in this moment, he's describing something else. A transformation. He talks about urinating in soup, about splicing pornography into family films. Small acts of rebellion, invisible acts of contempt. But then he says this, "I had to come to this on my own." That phrase, "I had to come to this on my own." This is the existentialist leap. This is what Kierkegaard called the leap of faith, what Sartre called radical freedom, what Camus described as the moment of lucidity when Sisyphus turns around at the bottom of the mountain and decides to push the boulder up again. Tyler continues. People do it every day. They talk to themselves. They see themselves as they'd like to be. He's describing self-deception, bad faith, the lie we tell ourselves to make existence bearable. Jean-Paul Sartre gave us the concept of mauvaise foi, bad faith. It's the lie we tell ourselves about who we are. The waiter who overperforms being a waiter. The person who says, "I had no choice," when they always had a choice. We do this because freedom is terrifying. Absolute freedom means absolute responsibility. The narrator, before Tyler, lives in perfect bad faith. He buys IKEA furniture to define himself. What kind of dining set defines me as a person? He asks. He attends support groups for diseases he doesn't have because he needs to feel something, anything. But he won't take responsibility for his own emptiness. Tyler represents the opposite. When he describes his liberation, he's describing the moment he stopped lying to himself. He stopped pretending his job mattered. He stopped pretending the social contract was sacred. He stopped pretending that playing by the rules would lead to meaning. Just add water, he says about the soap. It's a joke, but it's also a philosophy. Take the fat of the wealthy, literally the excess, the waste of consumer culture, and transform it into something useful, something that cleans. The rich, Tyler says, are essentially paying to buy their own fat asses back. This is Sartre's radical freedom in action. Tyler has recognized that all values are constructed, that there is no inherent meaning, and so he creates his own. He doesn't ask permission. He doesn't wait for society to validate his choices. But here's where it gets complicated. Albert Camus wrote about the absurd, the confrontation between our human need for meaning and the universe's silent indifference. We want answers. The universe gives us none. This is the absurd condition. Camus said there are three responses to the absurd: suicide, philosophical suicide, or revolt. Suicide is literal. Philosophical suicide is what most people do. They leap into religion, ideology, or distraction to avoid facing the absurd. They choose comforting lies. Revolt is different. Revolt means facing the absurd directly, accepting it, and living anyway. Living fully, passionately, without illusions. One must imagine Sisyphus happy, Camus wrote. Why? Because Sisyphus knows his task is meaningless, yet he continues. He owns his fate. He rebels against the absurd by embracing it. Tyler Durden is Camus's rebel. When he describes his liberation, urinating in soup, making soap from stolen fat, creating Fight Club itself, he's not just acting out, he's performing a philosophical revolt. He's saying, I see that this world is meaningless, that these rules are arbitrary, that this civilization is built on nothing. And instead of despairing, I will create my own meaning through action. Fight Club itself is absurdist theater. Men punching each other for no reason, no trophy, no recognition. Just the pure experience of being alive, of feeling something real in a world of simulation. But, and this is crucial, Camus warned about something. He warned about the rebel becoming the oppressor. He warned about revolt turning into tyranny. Tyler's liberation is intoxicating, it's seductive, and that's precisely what makes it dangerous. Because Tyler doesn't stop at personal freedom, he creates Project Mayhem, he builds an army, he erases credit card debt by blowing up buildings. His revolt against meaninglessness becomes a new ideology, complete with rules, hierarchy, and human sacrifice. The members of Project Mayhem chant, "His name is Robert Paulson." They've found meaning again, but it's Tyler's meaning, not their own. They've traded one form of bad faith for another. This is what Sartre feared. This is what Camus warned against in The Rebel, the revolutionary who becomes the tyrant, the liberator who becomes the oppressor. Tyler Durden starts as an existentialist hero and ends as a fascist leader. So is Tyler's liberation destructive or constructive? The answer is both, and that's what makes it so philosophically rich. Tyler's initial insight is correct. The narrator is living in bad faith. Consumer culture is a trap. Most people are asleep, living lives of quiet desperation, as Thoreau said. Tyler wakes the narrator up. He forces him to confront his freedom. But Tyler's solution, violence, chaos, destruction, isn't the only response to the absurd. Camus would say it's actually a betrayal of the absurd, because once you impose your meaning on others, once you build an ideology and demand obedience, you've committed philosophical suicide. You've replaced one false god with another. Just add water. 3 words that contain an entire philosophy. Take the waste of a meaningless culture and transform it. Create something from nothing. Exercise your radical freedom. But remember, freedom isn't just destruction. Freedom is also creation. It's choosing how to live, what to value, what to build. Tyler Durden shows us the first part brilliantly. He fails at the second. The most existentialist moment in Fight Club isn't when Tyler blows up the credit card buildings. It's earlier, it's quieter. It's when the narrator at the very end holds Marla's hand and says, "You met me at a very strange time in my life." That's acceptance. That's Sisyphus at the bottom of the mountain, turning around, seeing the boulder, and choosing to push it up again. But this time, with someone else. This time, with connection. With love even. Camus wrote, "In the midst of winter, I found there was, within me, an invincible summer." That's the real liberation, not destroying the world, but finding meaning within yourself despite the world's meaninglessness. Tyler Durden teaches us to wake up, to reject bad faith, to embrace our freedom. But he also teaches us, through his failure, that freedom without responsibility, rebellion without creation, is just another form of nihilism. The existentialist doesn't just tear down. The existentialist builds, not because the universe demands it, but because we choose to. Because in a meaningless universe, our choices are the only things that matter. I'm Adrian Vale. The rain has stopped here in Prague. The streets are still wet, reflecting the lights. I'm going to make some coffee now, not because I have to, but because I choose to. Because even small choices, especially small choices, are acts of freedom. Think about Tyler's soap. Think about what you're building with your freedom, and ask yourself, are you creating or are you just destroying? Until next time.